It occurred to me that next weekend I won't be able to shoot any episodes of this podcast because I'll be up north. So I had to squeeze in a quick one. And forgive me in advance. I do have some landscape work being done right now. So if you hear hammering and banging and ripping and tearing and clanging and banging and swanging and probably slurs and catcalling, it's because of the landscaping that's being done right now in my backyard. Where this podcast room is in the front of the house, but it looks like they're set up to do a lot of the noisy stuff in the front. So, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Uh, if you are interested in my take on who is the best group of people, then you're in luck because I'm here to share with you that, bar none, far, far and away, my favorite group of people are Mexican people, man. Mexican people, and this is a generalization, and sure, maybe it's, I don't want to say racist because that term has just been thrown around. Like anything that involves race isn't necessarily racist. It's not prejudice. It's not negative. I just find that the vast majority of Mexican friends that I've made over the years, very hardworking, very funny, can take a joke, can dish it and take it, and usually are pretty rooted in a strong faith, and they love to have fun. When I lived in California, I made friends with the majority of Mexican people, and I went to some of their parties, like birthday parties or whatever, and it was so fun. And yeah, that's my answer. So, if you don't like it, leave a comment that you don't like it, that I have an opinion. I'm sorry for having an opinion, but this podcast, the Skunk Box podcast, and I'm just gonna flow. I got nothing. I don't have anything. Well, I do have some talking points written down in case I get too off track, but this podcast it's taking on a life of its own. And it used to be all about 40-day challenges. What 40-day challenge do my guests want to do? And I said, why create a barrier for anyone who might want to come on the podcast? It's a weird enough thing that, but everyone's got their stuff going on. Nobody wants to take a break out of their Saturday and sit down and do a podcast. But the way I try to spin it is like, as we get older, kids come up, jobs come up, responsibilities come up. I mean, in the summer, is it just me or does every Saturday seem to get filled with some sort of graduation party, wedding, birthday party? Everything happens in the summer, reunion. So it's harder and harder to hang out with your friends. So I'm like, let's hang for an hour or two. We'll just do it on microphones. Why not? So that's kind of the idea of the Skunk Box podcast, rather than let's commit to a 40-day challenge. Although I will say this, the origin of that name comes from my friends and I going fishing. And whenever somebody would catch the first fish of the day, we would say, skunks out of the box. Because what happens if you don't catch a fish? You get skunked. So catch the first fish, you're no longer skunked, skunks out of the box, let's go. And it's funny. I dabbled back in smoking cigarettes for a good 2 months there, 2.5 months, and it changes my voice. After that, like first pack, my voice, it kind of gets a little gravelly, and it's probably down an octave or two. And Emily actually likes it. She likes my smoker's voice. So I gotta try to deepen it. Do you hear that? It's not a T-Rex outside my window. It's the landscapers here to save the day. And maybe I will get right here. What I'll do is I'll put a before and after of the landscaping. Here's before. See all those ugly shrubs and trees, and we let it overgrow. And here, pristine, new, slick, new print, little, yellow, different. Here's something that blew my mind away. Yesterday, we were just watching a show, I think the new Dexter, and Emily wanted a snack. And we don't keep many snacks on hand, but we do keep chocolate chips. And we look at the back of the package, and it says 1 serving of chocolate chips is 1 tablespoon. 80 calories, 1 tablespoon, or 15 grams of chocolate chips. And I will give you a moment to think of how many regular sized chocolate chips can fit in a tablespoon. So you take the little measuring cup, you scoop it, 1 tablespoon of chocolate chips. I'll give you 5 seconds. Pause the video, put it in the comments. How many chocolate chips do you think are in that tablespoon? I thought it would be 5. 10 at the very most. The answer is 29 chocolate chips equal 1 tablespoon of chocolate chips. And I feel like that has to be the new, what was the viral thing of that dress that some people thought it was white and gold, some people thought it was like blue and purple or some shit like that? Or the Laurel, Yanny, Laurel. That thing that just people were obsessed about. Oh my God, what are they saying? I feel like 29 chocolate chips in a tablespoon is the new Laurel Yanny. Laurel. Which one did you hear? I heard Laurel, but there was like 2 times where I heard Yanny. Laurel. So fucking stupid. It is so dumb. Here's a little factoid I want to throw at you that I heard about recently. It's kind of on par with the 29 chocolate chips and 1 tablespoon thing, but once you hear it, it might be a little surprising, or it might not be. The movie Shawshank Redemption, which I feel like everybody's seen. Shawshank Redemption is the movie that when you're flipping through the channels, if anybody still does that, most people have primarily streaming, I think, but for anyone flipping through the channels, TNT, Shawshank, or TBS, I think TBS showed it, but TNT mostly, Shawshank Redemption on a loop, you stop. My movies were Shawshank Redemption, weirdly enough, A Day After Tomorrow, and San Andreas. I'm a sucker for those shitty disaster movies. But Shawshank Redemption, how much time of that movie do you think is devoted to a woman speaking? If your guess was 29 chocolate chips, you are correct. No. If your guess was 10 seconds, congratulations, you are correct. Apparently, and I haven't fact-checked this, I heard it on a podcast, and that's good enough for me, so I'm going to say it here. Shawshank Redemption features 10 seconds of a woman talking, fill in the blank with a joke. Well, that's why it's so good. That's why it's so successful. Up. So I have a mildly funny story. Maybe you had to have been there. I thought it was funny, silly. So at work, there's a fitness center, and it's actually pretty legit. There are 4 treadmills, a couple ellipticals, tons of machines, lat pull down, row, chest press. There's a bench with the thing with the hooks on it, like a Planet Fitness bench, squat rack, bunch of other machines. There's free dumbbells. I don't think there might even be kettlebells in there. There's a lot of stuff in there. So when I have time in my day, usually after lunch, I go in there and I usually work out at home in the morning. By the way, I'm doing P90X right now and I am almost back, baby. I am almost back. Tony Horton, the best personal trainer, aside from my wife, of all time. If you want to get in shape and you're just like, what do I got to do? Here it is. get P90X, order it. It comes with the bands and the pull-up bar, or stream it on Beachbody On Demand, and then just talk to ChatGPT about your goals and what you want to eat. There you go. Stop complicating it. It's not complicated. It's very, very, very simple to get in good shape no matter where you are. And, okay, so I'm on this treadmill. Sorry about that. I'm on this treadmill, and to pass the time, I usually go on there for about half hour to an hour. And to pass the time, I usually, on my work phone, I have HBO Max, Netflix, and Paramount on there. So I'll prop it up. There's this perfect little ledge on there, wedges right in. And I was watching the Pee Wee Herman documentary. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not really going to spoil anything other than like a small thing that happened in his life. And it wasn't as popular as the controversy he went through with the jerking off in a movie theater, which haven't we all? But there was a scandal involving child schmorgschmognoraphy. Children schmorgnoraphy. And apparently the one guy from Ferris Bueller got busted and he was guilty. I think Ferris Bueller principal was guilty. And he was an associate of Pee-wee, Paul Reubens. And I guess Pee-wee got caught in the crossfire because Pee-wee had this super expansive catalog collection of risque material. Like Pee-wee's Funhouse was kind of like his home in Los Angeles with all this collectible stuff, super obscure stuff. And so, okay, so it's the part in the documentary where they're deep diving what actually happened there. And when I get into the fitness center, it's empty. Nobody's in there. And then as I'm walking, one person trickles in, 2 people, 3 people, and there's probably 5 or 6 people in there at a time. And it's not a huge room. It's probably 2 bedroom size. Like if you think of like a normal size bedroom, like a 10 by 10 or a 12 by 12, it's like 2 of those. So not massive by any means. Nah, it's bigger than that. Anyways, 3 bedrooms. So during this part of the documentary, they're flashing images, and Pee Wee Herman, spoiler alert, this is a spoiler alert, skip ahead 15 seconds if you don't want to hear this, he was gay. He was closeted for a very long time, but he was gay. So a lot of his collection was gay porn, but none of it was underage stuff. He had thousands and thousands of magazines, and they show them. You might be able to see where this is going. They show them, and I guess out of the thousands, one of them was questionable at the age of the person, but they ended up researching it. He was above 18. So he's fine. Be into what you're into, whatever. So I'm walking on the treadmill, and of course, the fitness center is the busiest when they're showing all of these risque images of Pee-wee's gay porn collection. And I'm walking on the treadmill right next to a guy, and he's doing double takes, man. He does not like, and it's a plant. These guys, they're like in their 50s or 60s, and they do not like gay porn, at least openly. And he showed it. He was giving me the side eye where he's, we're both walking on the treadmill, and he keeps glimpsing over out of his peripheral at what I'm watching. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, please. I almost skipped ahead, but I'm like, no, let's see where this goes. and he's looking, and you could see his grip getting tighter and tighter. You could see his jaw starting to clench, and he's like dialing up the speed on the treadmill, like, "Oh, I'm gonna walk this off." And I know what he was thinking, and he didn't say anything, but he wanted to look at me and be like, "Is that what you like?" And I probably would have fucked with him a little bit. I probably would have been like, "Yeah, isn't it what you like? Isn't this what you like too? Isn't this what everybody likes?" And he didn't say anything. I wanted to tell the story and do like an embellished version where he does say something, but we keep it real here. We keep it honest. Maybe I'll start to lie in the future to make this more entertaining. But yeah, some people don't like gay porn, and I think that's a they them problem. That's a they them problem. Speaking of they them, this thought occurred to me, and I don't know where I'm going with this, as with pretty much everything I talk about on here, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, because I had this thought, and I think I'm onto something here. So I'm probably like 3 years too late on this idea, probably 5 years too late on this idea, or just this commenting on this as a whole. But I wanted to talk a little bit about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And actually, this is a two-part thought I just realized. First part, I didn't even plan on talking about this, so here we go. That term woke. I had a very interesting experience where I was able to explain the term woke to an old fella. I think he's 85. This was at a meeting, a 12-step meeting, so I will keep his identity anonymous, obviously. But this is probably 2 years ago now, and it was the meeting before the meeting. So you have your kind of regimented meeting, but a lot of times before you chit chat with the people, after you chit chat with people. And I was talking with this kind old gentleman. He, like I said, he's probably 85. He's a Vietnam vet. And he and I, and probably two other people, were chit chatting. And I don't know if he's a Fox News guy or an MSNBC guy, but he kept hearing the term woke on the news, and he didn't know what that meant. So he goes, "Yeah, all they want to talk about on the news is this woke stuff. What is that?" And then I could see just that word really, really frustrated one of the guys sitting with us. Also an older guy. This guy's probably in his mid-70s, maybe late 70s. And he goes, "Ah." He just swatted it away. Just heard that word and went, "Ah." And I said, okay, this is a really interesting thing for me. So I looked at him and I go, "Well, it depends who you ask." I will make up his name. Frank? No, I don't like that made up name. How about Jim? Jim, it depends who you ask. Now, if you ask somebody who is moderately to extreme conservative, they will say that woke is this sort of like mind virus in a politically correct society that's going too far. It's removing people's ability to think and talk normally out of fear of offending somebody and saying the wrong thing unintentionally and being stigmatized for it, being branded a racist or a misogynist or xenophobic, anything. And that's what they would say woke is. Now, if you ask a moderate to extreme person that's liberal, they would tell you that woke is a title that's been given simply for people who have progressive ideas, people who want to help move the ball forward for marginalized people, for trans people, for people of color, for this, for that. So I laid it. I was actually, not to pat myself on the tits, but I felt pretty good about that. And then he was like, okay. So I was able to explain woke from a neutral standpoint. Be like, this is what this, and I feel like that's kind of me. I have my opinions and whatnot, but I feel like if everybody could just do that, that would just remove your emotion and remove your own shits from being so ingrained in it. Like the people that have their mind made up before. Chris Rock had that great bit. He's like, I got some shit I'm liberal about. I got some shit I'm conservative about. If you got your mind made up before you hear the argument, you a motherfucking fool. God, that sucked. I'll cut that, probably. But here's the thing that I learned recently after watching a Bill Burr interview. I was emphatically incorrect on my definition of woke, because what I didn't realize, and I should have realized, is woke, I'm going to butcher this, but woke derives as, of course, a term that black people used to describe people that were waking up to the fact that there were racial injustices. So, of course, doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative, leave it to the fucking white people to take a term that was popularized and used by black people and change in the definition. God, we suck. And I should have known. No, we don't suck. We don't suck. We're all fine. There's bad eggs in every group, and it's always the loudest. It's always the loudest ones who, whatever. But I should have realized, because I've listened to enough hip hop music to know that term has been used a ton before it got popularized. This woke mind virus, before it got popularized in the media and stuff. Royce da 5'9" has a song called "Woke," and it was 2017, 2018, and it dates back far. I'm talking. I looked into it. I think it was like the 30s, Great Depression era, where it started to be a term, and now it's everybody uses it incorrectly. Guys, we're using it incorrectly. So I thought that I would touch on that, and I didn't even plan on touching on that, but yeah, I thought that was very interesting that this term woke that gets thrown around. I'm against woke culture. I'm against cancel culture. Well, you're using it incorrectly, and I have been too. But back to the DEI topic that I wanted to talk about, taking a slug of Celsius. So every time I watch a movie or new series, anything that's come out since like 2019, 2020, I can't help but notice the forced DEI in the cast. And it goes so over the top where it's like, well, we have this white lady, she's got to be married to a black guy. Or we have this gay couple, or we have this straight couple, there's got to be a gay couple, or we have Asian representation, let's make sure we have Native American too. It's everything all in one. And when it's so forced like that, it kind of takes, for me, it's just like, come on. You're just, like we're watching Dexter, and they just so blatantly forced there to be a gay couple in there. And look, and I am not anti diversity, equity, inclusion in general for the most part. I think it has its pros and cons, whatever. But I think there's another way to do it that's more natural. I think for every primarily white casted show or movie, There should be a primarily black casted show or movie, a primarily gay casted show or movie, primarily Asian, primarily Mexican, primarily Native American. Because yes, culture, unless it's like in New York City, which, yeah, okay. So now I'm proving myself incorrect. New York City seems to me like the one true melting pot of a place. But even then, I would say, isn't it that like most people like to hang out with similar people? I don't know. Maybe I just need to get out of my comfort zone more. But if I have similar interests as somebody, I'm going to want to talk to that person. I think we just, as a society, we naturally gravitate towards people that look like us. And I think I'm digging myself in a deeper hole now. But I think it would just be more natural of making sure everybody's represented than rather than just cramming every race, gender, nationality, ability, disability into like one scene of every movie or show, kind of making it so, hit the box office, there's everything represented from a top level. I don't know. Is that dumb? Is that a dumb idea? Maybe that one needs to cook a little bit. Yeah. I'm grateful though. I'm grateful. Life is really good. Life is good. And there was a time where life was not so good. And I was at a meeting last night, and I just had this definition of addiction kind of bebopping around in my brain. We were talking about abundance and what that means to each of us. And abundance to me is being able to find joy in many different things. I find joy from so many things. I find joy from going on walks with or without headphones in. I find joy in the quiet times of the day. I find joy in a good TV show or a good movie. Damn it, I find joy in a good book. I'm this guy now. 15-year-old me would probably want to hit me over the head with a crowbar. I was big into crowbars when I was 15. What a weird thing. I thought I was like I was so influenced by hip hop music and violent movies and Grand Theft Auto. I wanted to wear pants, and I wanted to wear pants that were baggy enough to where I could chain a crowbar to my calf in case shit popped off in Plymouth, Michigan. Oh, brother. But I'm this guy now. Yeah, the movie was pretty good, but the book was better. I'm that guy. I read the book Sharp Objects recently, and we watched the series. I'm like, yeah, I didn't like how they took creative liberties with the Sydney Sweeney character in the series. She only popped up in one paragraph in the whole book. And then I was like, well, the character Amma in the book, they make sure to emphasize the fact that she's 13 and she has huge cans. And in the series, I'm like, her cans aren't even that big. Thank God. That's another thing I'm grateful for that I find joy in. Not being a not being a schmetaphile. Not being a bedophile. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get demonetized on YouTube. Because all 17 of my listeners need me to keep churning these out. Keep churning out the podcast, Chris, they say. Keep it coming. Well, now that I do this as my job at work, I really do this as a training exercise to dial in the process, to make sure I get better, to learn. Because talking, everybody could talk, but I do certain things and I don't want to point them out because then you'll notice them and you'll be like, my 17 listeners could drop to 12 if I tell you what things I do during conversation that I don't like. So I really try to do this to dial in the process because it's my job now. I've given up on, I'm not giving up on YouTube, but I've given up on the fact that, YouTube is going to become some like lucrative source of income. By the way, in the description of this video, there is a link for NutriCost supplements. I use them. I think they're great. I get a little kickback. So if you want to support the podcast and support your health, I don't know anything about them. I don't know if they're legit or not. I just use them and they, clearly gun show, clearly definition, clearly tricep boy. They're working on me. But to not be attracted to children is really, really great. I think the real heroes are the people who are attracted to minors and they don't act on it. And they do not get enough credit and shout out. I think I and my friends were a little worried about me there for a while because I dated a couple of youngsters in my 20s. When I was 28, I dated a 19-year-old. That was cutting her a little close. And then when I was 30, I was dating a 20-year-old. And, thank God. I think 18 is the correct age of consent. If anything, I think it could be bumped up a little bit. But now I've Jesus, I've settled in. I'm married, and now I see as I age, what I'm attracted to also ages. Mark Norman has that joke where he's like, when I was 15, I was attracted to 15-year-olds. Now I'm 30. I'm attracted to 30-year-olds. When I was 15, I like grape juice. Now that I'm 30, I like red wine, but I still like grape juice. And that to me is one of the, God, it was sitting right there for everybody to make a joke about, and Norman got it, and he knocked it out of the park. He totally knocked it out of the park. Man, I'm grateful for comedy. I'm grateful for comedy in the stand-up form, in the movie form, in the TV series form, in the podcast form. And I'm grateful that, the majority of my friends are very, very funny. So funny. If you have a funny group of friends, I'm talking objectively funny. I'm not talking about like, oh, we have all these inside jokes and you had to be there. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like genuinely funny. And you might not even realize it until you hang out with somebody who's not used to hanging out with you guys. I remember I had a diaper party one time and tons of my buddies came, and one of my friends, well, a good amount of my friends, but one friend in particular came in and he wasn't used to hanging out with these guys. And then he told me later, he goes, your friends are cool, man. Like, funny guys. I'm like, oh yeah, we just are so used to it by now. But laughter is huge. And there was a time where I couldn't really laugh at myself about stuff. Talk about how sensitive I was for any criticism. I was so sensitive. It's one of the gifts of 12 steps. 12 steps, man. I have a story where one time we were up north in a little town called Caseville, Michigan. Cheeseburger Fest, Jimmy Buffett Fest. Shout out my boy Max. His parents had a cottage out there, and we used to just go kill. Our track record in Caseville, we were batting 1,000 every time we went. Not only did we have a blast, but we were pulling in locals left and right, like the Jersey Shore. Man, and what I was good at back then, I was good at initiating conversation, get us in there, get me and my boys in there. Sucked at the close. I could not close for the life of me. I was so bad at closing. I didn't know what to do. But there was one time we were on the beach, bonfire, like the Kid Rock song, and I decided it would be fun to have a roast of everybody. So I'm like, let's roast each other, guys. Not knowing what was coming my way, not being prepared, thinking I could handle any sort of roast thrown towards me. So I'm pointing people out left and right. Roasted, 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 boom, boom. And I'm like, all right, guys, now do me. And Justin, without skipping a beat, he goes, Chris, you're fake. And I go, what do you mean by that? and it kind of simmered down. And then I remember like it just stuck with me. And then like the next day, kind of pulled him off to the side. I go, what did you mean that I'm fake? He just goes, I don't know, man, you're fake. And we just kept it moving. But that, I still remember, that was 20 plus years ago. And I still remembered it. And to be that sensitive to being roasted in a comedic setting said a lot about my mental state pretty much my entire life before I did some real work on myself. And now I couldn't give a fuck. Now, I get made fun of, and I was given back the ability to just laugh at myself, and it's good. Feels good. But yeah, just grateful not to be attracted to children. I'm a big fan of the rapper Harry Mack, and I talked about him a lot on the last episode. So I'm not going to do a full-blown deep dive. Although if you just want to have a smile put on your face, pause the video, go to YouTube, and search Harry Mack DC. And he does freestyles for people in DC. And that first group of people, it just never fails to put a smile on my face. But the reason I bring up Harry Mack is because if there's anybody, I'm not ambitious anymore, but if there's anybody who's ambitious and wants to, here's an idea. It's just sitting for you on a silver platter. Nobody has done this. You just need a camera, some sort of clip-on microphone, probably a Bluetooth speaker to play a beat, and you got to have a little bit of cojones to go approach people in public. So that's all you need. And this idea is going to blow up if you do it. I don't want to do it. So Harry Mack, he's very popular for approaching groups of people in public and asking them if he can do a freestyle for them. People typically say yes, especially if it's like a bar setting. People just coming out of the bar late at night. People love that shit. He got so many people in New Orleans coming out of bars. It was hilarious. So, and then he says, give me some creative, challenging words to inspire my freestyle. And people give him words, and he does a freestyle about it. And it's always really, really good. So good, in fact. Here's the idea. You dress up like him, and you take on the name Harry Whack. And you do the exact same thing, except when it comes to freestyling, you are just really, really, really bad. And I feel like everybody is already really bad at freestyling. And you just do that, get reactions of people, and boom, and you blow up. You ride the Harry Mack wave. He's at like plus 3 million subscribers. So you just create your own path by doing bad freestyles. I would watch that. I would watch that every week. In fact, if you do that, let me know and I will repost your stuff on my page. I just think that is so funny. And yeah, it would be very simple to make a beginning. And yeah, I think you should go do that because I'm not going to do it. I don't talk politics except for when I want to talk about politics. And this isn't really political, but it was one of those things where, have you ever gone through, because I was very, very late to learn about this stuff. I remember junior year of high school, we had this class about politics, and everybody in class was able to be like, yeah, I kind of have more conservative beliefs. And other people in class were like, I have more liberal beliefs. And that never made sense to me. It never made sense to me. And then in college, even, people they were so easily able to identify kind of which camp they belonged in. And I was like, well, but it's not always the case. Like, how can you be so pro-life, and on the flip side, it's like, how can you be so pro-choice? Isn't everything just like a spectrum? Like, I didn't get the black and white of it. I was like, isn't it all just like a spectrum? Like, isn't it weird to think like the second the egg gets fertilized, it's a human that should be protected at all costs? Isn't it like, for me, it was always like, it seems like the longer it bakes, the more it trudges up some feeling that like, oh, that bothers me. But like immediately, like next day, plan B, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But so I think maybe lucky to be able to look at the world through this totally unbiased lens for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until maybe 2020, 2021 maybe, where I was started to be like, oh, I get it. That's why these people think this way, or that's why those people think that way. And one of those things was when she's not really she was once a good friend. We kind of fell out of touch, but she's a nurse, and this is when COVID was first kicking off. Like this is probably like April 2020 here in the US, and she's a nurse, and she posted this video on Instagram just about how chaotic the hospital environment has been and how we need to shelter in place and how we're going to be just like Italy and all these things. And that video got picked up by just about every news site across. I don't remember if it was a local thing or a national thing. I think it might have been a national thing, because that video, millions and millions of views, and her Instagram account just blew up. And I remember reposting that video, still no lens of anything, and just being like, hey, here's a nurse who's giving you the insider scoop, and you better listen. Everybody just stay safe, shelter in place, nobody touch anything, like all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, she's there. It's got to be there, right? Why else would the news pick this up? This is important. And to a degree, that was true for the time. But then, like, it was years later where I look back on that, and I was like, oh. The reason why that video got so popular is because it checked all of the boxes that the news is all about. It was fitting the narrative perfectly. And it struck fear and emotion in everybody that watched it. And I look back, I'm like, oh, so if it would have been the opposite, where it was a nurse being like, yeah, we've had some cases here, but, you know, as long as we keep them off a ventilator and keep them on like a steady drip of vitamins, and people are mostly fine. But what it does look like is people with comorbidities, people that are elderly and obese, whatever, seem to struggle with this thing more. So, focus on your health and stuff like that. If it would have been that didn't strike fear and in fact said, you actually have some degree of autonomy over this thing, like you can manage your, it wouldn't have got picked up because it didn't fit what they wanted you to fit. So those are the kind of things, and that's about as close to political as I wanted to get on it. But that's how much of a late bloomer I was, in the fact that I would always think like, yeah, maybe the news bends and twists the truth a little bit, but and maybe generally they have an agenda, but 95% of it's just giving you the big things. And yeah, I was a big time late bloomer on that whole thing. And then I remember that video. That I reposted on Facebook, and the comment war was just wild. There were people who were like, yeah, do what she says. And there's this one guy who, he's a bit of a loose cannon, this fella. His name's Dan. He was just like, this isn't a crisis. Look, and he would go drive around to different hospitals and take pictures of the emergency room because there was no big lines to get in. And he would be like, he had some stuff, but he was like a former vet, and he was like, this isn't a crisis. This is just fear mongering and stuff like this. And just the comment battles in the comment section of that video alone, hilarious. Switching gears, take another sip. You know about the Mandela effect? Everybody knows what that is. It's the whole, it wasn't Berenstain Bears this whole time, it was Berenstain Bears. I still call it the Berenstain Bears, and I always will. I'm happy to be incorrect on that one. There was one who was like, Totino's Pizza Rolls. I was thinking it was Tostino's Pizza Rolls this whole time. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess I did think it was Tostino's Pizza Rolls, but Pizza Rolls and Tostino's chips, the tortilla chips, two separate companies. But I've figured out a Mandela effect that seems to be infecting the minds of the masses that I want to dismantle right now, because I'm sick and tired of this. And it's regarding the movie Forrest Gump. And I've seen so many people misquote this part of the movie, and I'm going to blow the lid off this thing right now. Because one thing that I don't get wrong is movie quotes, with the exception of one time. And the one time I lost a bet on a movie quote, it was from the movie Half-Baked. And I still stand in the fact that I heard a different thing. I admitted I was wrong. I wasn't misremembering, I was mishearing. The movie Half-Baked, when oh my God, Brian is a different character. Damn it. My buddy Bobby, who I think listens sometimes, he knows where I'm going with this, but I am struggling to get there. Okay. Kenny, Brian, Dave Chappelle. Oh my God, it's been so long since I've seen this movie. Okay, so it was the friend that goes to jail. He leaves and he goes, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, call the police. And then Dave Chappelle, Thurgood, he goes, if he ain't back in 10 minutes, we calling Domino's. And that's what Bobby thought. And I thought it was, if he ain't back in 10 minutes, we calling the Domino's. Like, call the police. Dave Chappelle said, call in the Domino's. And it just came down to like a tiny roll of the tongue. If he ain't back in 10 minutes, we call in the Domino's. I thought there was a little, it wasn't even the, it was, we call in the Domino's. We watched it back, and I kept hearing, we call in the Domino's. I think we might have even subtitled it too. And I was incorrect. So I have been incorrect on a movie quote one time. And I paid my bet. I think I owed him 10 or 20 bucks. Anyways, Forrest Gump. There's the scene where Tom Hanks, meets Forrest Jr. for the first time. It's a very emotional scene, and that's probably why people quote it so often. And when he's asking Jenny, he gets all emotional and all serious. He goes, he's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But is he smart or is he? And the thing people always quote, they say, is he smart or is he like me? Forrest does not say, is he smart or is he like me? In fact, Tom Hanks is such a good actor, he asks the question without saying the words. Such a terrific scene. But he goes, but is he smart or is he? And then he kind of gestures to himself, like to say it, but he doesn't say it. And then, without saying a word again, he gestures like very subtly towards Forrest, and he asked the question, can I go talk to him? But he doesn't say a word, and Jenny's like, yeah, go talk to him. And man, I get goosebumps just thinking about that scene, but I wanted to just blow the lid off this whole thing and just shout from the rooftops that he does not say, is he smart or is he like me? He says, is he smart or is he? And he can't even say the words. Fantastic scene, but everybody's misquoting it, and it just pet peeve is misquoting movies. Pet peeve, misquoting movies. Another pet peeve is the people that they're all about discipline and hard work and just do the hard thing. And these fucking people, they always cite this. They always say, make your bed in the morning. That's what I do. I make my bed in the morning. And it's a lot of people, and you could tell, you've watched one inspirational, motivational, military-style video on YouTube, and now you're all about, make your bed. I make my bed every day. And it's like, okay, sure, make your bed, but there's about 45 other things that you could be doing to better yourself rather than making your bed. All right, I'll probably delete that. Okay. I think I got one more thing. We're talking about movies and pet peeves. Well, I got a twofer right here, and it's not even a pet peeve, but I've noticed in like the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, well, really any era of movie making, there's always the scene that shows up in just about every movie. There's the one where some big news breaks and they're in like a precinct, and the captain's like, "Oh, I gotta go find out about this thing in the investigation." And then there's always the person in the precinct that's like, There's a shitstorm of reporters on my hands. Johnson, you gotta break the news." And it's always a shitstorm of reporters. Every movie has a shitstorm of reporters. And is that how they talk? I mean, if that's how they talk in a newsroom, I'll stop saying it. And sure, there could be a shitstorm of reporters. But there's another scene in every movie that I've noticed, and it's just like, come on, be creative. Come up with something else. It's similar. It's usually in some type of, not always, but some sort of detective setting, or at bare minimum, some kind of high pressure work setting. And there's the one character, oftentimes the main character, but not always. They're a total workaholic, right? They're a total workaholic, and it's some big holiday, Christmas Eve, and the lights are shut down, but what are they doing? They're still at their desk, big old filing folder of files, and they're hard at work. They're trying to crack the case or finish the story, whatever it is. And then what happens? There's the one person who is leaving, and they walk by their desk, probably, and they knock on it twice, and they go home. It's Christmas Eve. And then they probably got a glass of scotch at the work desk, and they're like, yeah, I will after this. Or hey, why don't you come have a drink with us? That's a big one too. Come have a drink with us. And yeah, and that's really it. But I'll end on this. This is from a buddy of mine. I call this the Skunk Box podcast, and it triggered a memory that I had. And a good buddy of mine, Joe, he came up with the best excuse to call off work that is foolproof. And if you're ever on the cusp of like not wanting to go to work, but feeling like, I just called off sick 2 weeks ago, I can't call off sick, can't take a, quote, mental health day, there's one excuse that will get you out of work every time. Asterisk, if it's an in-person job. If it's a work-from-home job, you might be shit out of luck. And the excuse is, I got sprayed by a skunk.